Hello and good morning. In this video, I will be examining the function and the role of Microsoft and Surface in the post-smartphone era. That's correct, I did say post-smartphone. For some time now, there have been some that have considered us to be in the post-PC era. I would personally disagree with that in that I think the purpose and function of a PC has not really changed since the PC was invented, in that it's more of a tool or utility that one can use to accomplish work, be productive, be creative. Of course, capabilities have somewhat increased, but the core essence of a PC is still the same for the past 40 years, essentially, 35 years-ish. So as far as smartphones are concerned, I guess it makes sense for us to identify and define some terms so that we're all on the same page. I think you can consider a smartphone to be a phone that is, just to kind of oversimplify the definition, I would say internet connected. So these phones would not be smart necessarily without their connectivity. So we have smart thermostats, we have smart ovens and toasters, and everything's smart. But for the purpose of a smartphone, back in the day we had the old candy bar phones and the flip phones and the old school phones that were not internet connected. They didn't have apps. They didn't have access to the world. Now these phones are basically little portals, or they're mini computers. One might even say pocket computers or pocket PCs. But essentially what I'm getting at is, we have this term that we call smartphone. Now, I don't know about everybody else, that is to say I do know about everybody else. The least performed function of this here phone is making phone calls. What I do with this primarily is communication, internet browsing, and things of that nature. I'm not a very big app guy, so that part doesn't matter to me, but I use it for the camera, use it for media, and other things. And so I very seldom actually make phone calls. And so what I'm saying here is that, to bring it kind of all into the central point of this video, it has to do with Microsoft and their ambition and goal with Surface. Now, unfortunately, I would say if Surface had been, if the Surface Duo in particular had been released in 2018, I think, as that was planned, then this conversation would go a little bit differently. Unfortunately, they decided to scrap Andromeda OS, which was a bit of a derivative of Windows Phone. And I personally think that would have been a better route to take, because Android, while it is pervasive and ubiquitous and functional and all that good stuff, like, it doesn't seem, to me, the overall messaging from Microsoft to its constituents and proponents is not one of confidence in the long term. For instance, Microsoft announces the Surface Neo, and like, I'm over here going crazy. Here we are. This is, I guess, the codename Centaurus for those who follow, and here we are. Here it is in the flesh. One more thing, and then they do a one more thing on top of the one more thing, which is Surface Duo. Now I'm going crazy. Like, I'm like jumping out of my seat and doing backflips, and then later on I find out, oh, what's running Android. I'm like, why? So I've been asking myself why ever since October 2019. I haven't been able to find a sufficient answer. I've seen other Microsoft watchers justified in saying that the number one issue that brought down Windows Phone was the fact that it didn't have apps. And I'm thinking to myself that this was an opportunity missed by Microsoft. I say that because in 2020, smartphones are not phones. They're not just phones. They are highly capable internet-connected cameras, if you will. For instance, I'm shooting this on a DSLR. if this DSLR, imagine this, if we fast forward, it could happen today actually. There are some DSLRs that are actually smart or internet connected. It's quite conceivable, I would argue, that you could have a DSLR or a laptop. Like, so here we have the Surface Pro X. It's a little bit too big, but I think if you have a device that is potentially pocketable, you can reference the Samsung Galaxy Fold, a device that is pocketable, or a DSLR or whatever that can fit into your pocket, as long as it's internet connected. You know, I think we need a better term, a more descriptive term along the lines of a mobile or modern mobile computing device, or as Microsoft puts it, always connected, or however you want to kind of label it, other than smartphone, because I think when we label these things as smartphones, we kind of diminish and limit their scope and the understanding as a prospective consumer. And so I say that to say that Microsoft Surface Duo could have been a little bit more transcendent. Number one, if it ran Windows 10X. Number two, if they, well, that's the primary reason, but if they decided not to kind of shoehorn it into the smartphone category, because in doing so now you've kind of compelled yourself to choose Android so that you can have apps. But if you're selling a device that is not a smartphone, it is just another modern mobile always connected PC. Now you don't have the scrutiny or the need, the necessity to make sure it runs apps, because you can just have Windows 10X. I personally would have preferred Andromeda, but that seems to be gone. So Windows 10X running on a modern mobile PC with telephony and all of that. So you can make your calls, you can do what you have to do. And for those who say, oh, I need the apps, well, they can go to the phone. In other words, if Microsoft had kind of uniform messaging around the Neo, I mean, it's like a perfect opportunity, I think, for a developer to say, you have these two devices, the start of another category, the start of another trend in technology. It makes sense for me to invest in these on the Windows side. But now it's like, if I'm an Android developer, and like, for instance, everyone likes to point to Snapchat when it comes to Windows Phone. If I'm Snapchat and I have my app for Android, oh, okay, well, I see Google is doing this, and Samsung and Huawei, and everyone is doing this for Android, dual screen, folding phones, whatever you want to call them. I'm going to adapt my app to accommodate that. And Microsoft's, oh yeah, let me join that party over there. But at the same time, I've got Windows 10X, and I would love people to, and to me, it kind of waters down the messaging or the purpose of Windows 10X. It almost shoots it in the foot in somewhat sabotaging fashion. So my point here is that I lament the current state of affairs. I think that Microsoft's ambition, had they been successful in continuing from pre-2016 through 2018 and release of the Surface Duo, this conversation would be a lot different. They would be kind of heralded as a trendsetter rather than just another. Because right now, as innovative as the Surface Duo is, it's in many ways just another. And I think that's really regrettable, that Microsoft really missed the opportunity to kind of plant its flag and be a trendsetter and say, hey developers, we're committed to this Windows 10X thing. This is our future. It is adaptable. It can run on a broad number of devices. It's a better messaging. It kind of better backs up UWP and all of that. But when you say, hey, because we didn't do so well last time, which was a different decade, it was a different era. That was in the era of smartphones. Now we're in the post-smartphone era. We don't need to necessarily compete directly on an app-by-app basis, especially when you have functionality like PWAs and stuff like that. So I just wanted to kind of share my thoughts on this. I think it's a little regrettable that Surface Duo has been kind of watered down to just another. as remarkable as it is, and all, I know there's a ton of tech and research and everything that went into it, the hinge especially. I, of course, will be getting one. As you can see, I'm currently an iPhone user, following the demise of Windows Phone, but now I'm going to be an Android user because, of course, the Surface Duo. But I just think that Microsoft has kind of hobbled itself in so many ways by not, you can say, taking a risk, or kind of not putting their best foot forward in terms of, this is who we are, this is what we're about, and this is what we're going to do. I often give the example of HoloLens, where they came out with it, it was great, it was grand, it was full of technology and all these other things, and it was a Gen 1 product. It was too expensive for the general consumer, but the vision was true. And so in that, we understand that they have now iterated on it. We're on Gen 2, which is aka Gen 3. But here we are in 2020, and now we're releasing this Android phone. And I'm thinking to myself, like, they could have done the same thing with HoloLens. If you don't feel so strongly about Surface Duo, then you should make, with Windows 10X, release it along with Neo. It's a very strong brand and messaging to developers and to consumers, and you can throw the ability to make phone calls in it and just tell people it's a mobile PC. It's a modern, mobile, always connected PC. It happens to have 2 screens and a hinge, a very beautifully crafted and designed hinge. But it's a modern, mobile, always connected PC. That gives you the leeway to build the ecosystem, to lure those developers like Snapchat and stuff like that over, if that is what you think will hobble the ecosystem. But I think that this was an opportunity missed, and as you can see, I am a Microsoft proponent, and so I'm just hoping that eventually they would kind of figure that out. I'm hoping that they haven't committed themselves overly to the cause of Duo and Android, and they can kind of incorporate Windows 10X at some point. So those are just my thoughts on Microsoft and Surface in the post-smartphone era. Yeah, stay tuned for more. I'm definitely going to be doing a little bit more of a deep dive on a lot of surrounding topics and stuff like that. And hopefully when I get my full setup going, we'll be able to have better discussions about Microsoft and Apple and Google and Facebook and Amazon and all the major players in the industry and stuff like that. So thank you for watching.